I'm Hakeem. I'm a historian.
I'm Jeff Thompson, sport youth activist.
Ranwy McCann, I'm a psychotherapist, pan-African psychotherapist, somebody who really believes in we are what we think, so we need to be careful what it is we're thinking.
Dr. Umar Johnson, school psychologist, author, educator.
Tadia's greeting, this is Empress Reggae, a recording artist and our story too. Jah Rastafari.
Greetings, this is Gratulus, and I'm AKA Reset the Mindset. Yeah, Reset the Mindset in our story. I'm also a recording artist and an our historian.
My name's Khadija. My surname is George. My writing name is Khadija Sasay. I'm a poet, I'm a publisher. So my display and exhibition is outside around Pan-African poetry, if you'd like to have a look at it. Thank you.
So we framed 5 questions that we'll be going through. The first one is, who are we? We've asked the young people this question, and we filmed video testimonies. If everyone wants to turn this way.
Sorry, yeah.
Who are we? I'm a part of a diaspora. I'm a part of a group that's larger than life, larger than who I am.
We are anything we want to be, you know, but who we are as like human beings, that is something I don't think a lot of us have the correct answer to.
We are the children of Africa, the past, the present and the future.
We are Africa. We are 2,000 languages, thousands of ethnicities. We are spread across the African continent and the rest of the world. We speak every language. We do everything. We are Africa. Africa is everyone.
Who are we?
We are a collective group of people from all around the world.
We are people that want to be ourselves, and at the same time, who we are defines where our lineage comes from. So, but in a modern kind of sense, we are who we want to be.
We've got a lot of potential for good and we've got a lot of potential for bad, but a lot of us hold a lot more power than other people, and they do their best to use that power because they know it's there and they acknowledge it and they can use it, and they do their best to sort of like suppress other people from having it.
We're a collection of people who have a shared history and identity, and we're trying to find our way.
We are a community of people willing to make change. We are a community of people that have a past that is not really pleasant, so we are trying to make the present better.
We're kings and queens. We're scholars, we're inventors, we're trailblazers, we're trendsetters. An amazing being upon this earth, that's who we are.
For our ancestors, Egyptians, kings, queens, and we're all connected to God or a supreme being, so yeah.
Well, we are Kushite, but mostly known as Africans and Blacks.
Yes, reggae, beautiful. Yeah, we are Kushites, most popularly known as Blacks and Africans. But we have, Africa is a whole. Some people come around and divide it and have people's mindset here, there and everywhere. But most of all, we are all one in a mankind and womankind. Blessed.
I'd like to kind of just say who we are not. We are not BME, we are not BAME, we're not a minority. So that is something that needs to be turned around and rejected. We are Africans, we are Caribbeans, we are Black.
I would say legacy, loyalty, and lineage. We're collaborative people, we're creative people. We also believe in kinship as well as culture. We have a way of doing things. And lineage, our ancestors. We are both our ancestors biologically as well as psychologically. The A is for ancestry, the F is for forever. We are forever people. No one knows exactly how old we are. We are God's first people. The R is for revolutionary. We change things when we find them not to be in our best interest. The I is for inventions. We invented half of the things that are used in this world. K for culture, A for action. We do an N for nationalism, pan-African nationalism.
Supposed to follow that. trying to be human or to get equality, that we missed the point that actually we don't need equality, that we tried so hard to be considered human that we forgot that we were actually meant to be divine. So we are the essence of all that ever was, all that ever will be, and our path is to reunite with that agenda.
We are simply past, present, and future. Spiritual, gifted, blessed, everything, intergenerationally, gifted, talented, and with potential, meeting all challenges that say we are not suppressed, we are not free, but we are emancipated.
We are the creators of everything and the makers of history.
I'm Galicia. We as a people were blind to see what's truly inside. Like, we're so focused on what is on the outside that we're oblivious to who we are inside. So.
I'm Christina, and I think we are joy, love, and happiness together as one, sharing our happiness.
I think once we find our authentic selves as an energy, we'll rock this planet like a bell.
We need to uphold each other. I think if we hold each other with importance, with pride, we can rise and we can do great things. So yeah, we need to uphold each other.
We have to make you and all of us have to be aware of our achievements. Yes? From your aware of your achievements and where you can go in life and what you can do in life, you won't be lost no more. You start finding the light, my friend. See, and then you spread it and spread it. So the aim and objective is to find out the how, the why, and the when. See it? Bless it.
If you don't know where you're going, anywhere will get you there. So I think the lostness is about not knowing what our destination is. And we've been very much under a false destination, I think. Yeah? So until we know where we want to go, and who we want to be, and how we want to be, then we will be lost. Does that make sense?
I think we need to be realistic, and some people are lost. Not everybody is lost, but some people are. So those who are not have to be there to support and help those who are. In a gentle way, nobody has to rubbish anybody else or make anybody feel small about that. We're there to help and support each other and encourage each other so that nobody is lost. Thank you.
I would add to that the need to be authentically African. We have spent a lot of time and money trying to copycat most of the other cultures around the world. The way we think, the way we act, the way we dress, the way we establish our family. In many respects, is not African. We have to be authentic. Things that are not authentic are not valued, they're not respected. And it's difficult for people to respect the oldest people in the world when they're so busy trying to copy the youngest people in the world.
Hello everybody, my name is Tamani. In answer to the brother's question, why I think that we're lost is that, just to give a quick example, this year, for example, is the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X. So a couple of months, so last month in London, I was hoping to organise an event about Malcolm X. So one reason why I feel like we're lost is that when I was going out there in South London, Central London, North London, some of our young people didn't know who Malcolm X was. They're like, oh right, who's Malcolm X? How can we as a people go anywhere if we don't know about some of our greatest ever heroes and shearers? That's one of the reasons why I think we're lost.
I just think, as like the black community, we don't really work very well as a team sometimes. I feel that you can be as positive as you can, but there's always someone that's going to bring you down. My experience sometimes the black community, sometimes you try to do something good for yourself and they're trying to bring you down, like, so that you're not better than them. and sometimes they can be worse than the white person in terms of some of the things that they can say and some things that they can effect you can have on you as well. So I think it's important to be open-minded and treat everyone the way you would like to be treated, and never like use jealousy or any hatred towards anyone because someone's trying to be successful or trying to help themselves in some way. And I think sometimes we forget about that and we start being a bit naive and be individualistic instead of trying to help people bring together. We think, well, how much money can I earn and how little can they earn? And I think we need to treat everyone the same. So if you want to say you want to go into business with someone, then it has to be 50-50, work together, don't try and like tell lies or, you know, I earn this much and then say, and when realistically you earn a lot more. So I think it's just about working together and trying to embrace people and don't think about the past so much, think about the future and where we can go. And until those grudges and those, you know, those deceits and those kind of hatred, until that goes away, there's always going to be these issues. So I think we have to treat everyone with respect and show everyone those kind of peaceful and nice things that we're capable of.
What Khadija George had mentioned about the whole essence of us recognizing the stages, and what Mr. Johnson had mentioned, I think once we know as African people what time it is, then we can answer all these questions that everyone is putting out in terms of identity. We need to recognize what time it is right now. It's not just a matter of it being the anniversary or the commentary of some great day. We need to know what's going on right now with us as a people. We need to be addressing things as a people. And if we recognize what time it is, then we will wake up and stop being so latent with our behavior and start moving together.
So the next question is, where do we come from? And so we can all turn to your right, left, yeah, and watch the screen.
Well, we come from this beautiful continent that people think that it's a country. But we come from a togetherness, and because we share the same sort of culture, we identify as one.
I come from the strongest group of people I know. I come from love, I come from laughter, I come from music, I come from overstepping obstacles, I come from overcoming challenges, I come from beauty.
We come from the world, I think. It's just the universe. Everything, the Big Bang, God, all that put into one.
Africa. But I think also when we look at that, we've come a long way in terms of even coming from Africa. I mean, there's a lot of people that have paved the way for us from like back in the day. So it's a long journey, it's been a long journey, it's been a big mission in terms of coming from that place to where we are now.
Ooh, where we've come from? Well, we as Black people, we've always and will be come from Africa. And I think we need to get back to that. Some people have forgotten where we've come from, and I think we as Black people who are in the know, should like distribute that information so then we're all as one.
In terms of geographical location, I'm someone that believes we all came from one central point, and that is in Africa, right? But where we came from outside of that, on a more spiritual level, we were created.
I would say we've come from a place of darkness and we're now like walking towards the light. I think everything's getting better for us, and it's just we've got a few more steps to go, but one day we'll get there.
Where are we from? I would say God. We're the only people on earth whose direct ancestry goes all the way back to the universe. Every other people come from us, but we're the only ones that God sits down first. When we look at the African woman as being the first human being on earth, that means every Black woman who traces their ancestry sooner or later comes to God. That's why our skin is black, because it's the color of the cosmos. That's why our hair is nappy. Those tight little circles represents the cyclical nature of African existence. Where we come from God.
that. Because I was actually going to say a very similar thing. We are divine beings. And I wanted to say we come from Africa, but we come from not the sense of Africa that we have now, but African ancient culture, wisdom culture. We come from a place where we knew that we were connected to spirit and we knew how to use spirit. And if we engage with that Africa where we came from, we won't have the issues that the brother was talking about there, about the separateness and the individualism and so forth. So we come from a place where we knew that we were connected not only to each other, but also to God.
Africa is the birthplace of civilization of all Africans. It must be an omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient recognition of that fact, and recognise in one thing that whilst we were created in the divine spirit, we are evolving and have yet to evolve within the full potential that we have.
I think when I answered the first question, I said that we are the makers of everything, the producers of everything, and also the makers of history. But that also means that we have to understand the history that's gone before us, because that's also where we come from. So we come from a history of struggle, of people trying to change the world. To say that we all come from Africa is just a fact, so we can put that fact down and then move on. So, but then that history is so important, because without knowing all those struggles that have been waged by our ancestors over hundreds of thousands of years, and how they've changed the world from that first world hundreds of thousands of years ago to where we are today, it's so important to understand that. Because if we understand it, then we really do realize that we are the makers of history, we are the makers of the future, we have the future in our hands. So we understand the lessons of history in order to make history in the future. So I think that history of where we've come from, without explaining it all, because we haven't got long enough to go into hundreds of thousands of years, is so important. That at least the lessons that we draw from it should give us the strength to create history in the future.
Fact is, yes, we come from Africa. Whether people want to acknowledge that or believe it, that's the case. We also come from fantastic and beautiful cultures and traditions. They're not always perfect. They're not always perfect, but at the end of the day, they make us human. And the most essential thing is we're all part of the human race, and we're all equal. That's where we come from. Thank you.
Well, as far as I see it, we come from kings and queens. So what I always tell the youth them, I remind the youth them, you come from kings and queens, act accordingly. Yeah, act accordingly. That's the first thing I try to put into their mind. What are you doing? You come from kings and queens, act accordingly. The next thing is that our culture is ancient and it's wise, wisdom. Yes, philosophy. We try to transmit the philosophies from like John Hendrik Clark, Dr. Sebi, etc. to the youth them and encourage them to read and to watch the various video clips and things so they can have a understanding and get things in context themselves. When they see us on the road, they're welcome to come and ask us questions. Blessed.
We come from the ancient and the wise. We come from palaces. We come from the kings and queens. We come from the pyramids. And we also come from the beautiful foods such as chocolate, mango, and mango. More mango, of course. And that beautiful place is Africa.
Oh, we were just in Africa 5 months ago, and we actually saw all the how can I say defamation and all the propaganda and all the lies that they say of Africa. They're still putting up 1984 pictures with the youth them belly blowout and all them things. So we say reset the mindset, yeah?
There's only usually a few kings and queens. And the majority of people are not kings and queens. And if we look at the pyramids, they weren't built by kings or queens. They were built by ordinary working people like me. So I don't see everybody coming from kings and queens. I think that's a distortion of history. I think we come from those who built the pyramids. I think we come from those who did mighty things, and that wasn't kings and queens. The idea that history is all about kings and queens is the way that people in Europe present their history. When you go to school, all you learn about is kings and queens. You don't learn about people like us. So I want to know the history of Africa, which is about people like us, and it's not the history of kings and queens.
Hi, my name's Amira. So I was just wondering, you were talking about being a lost people, and then you were saying that we're quite individual now as a people. And then I think what I'm reading, and Dr. Johnson was talking about divinity and wisdom and how we came from the wise. I think for me, it's more about how do we get back to that then? How do we get back to being of wisdom, being of divinity? Because from what I see, well, do we not know that we've not lost it then? Because I know so many people around me that walk around and do things that are not wise, that are not of wisdom, that are not of divinity. Yeah?
Thank you.
So just wondering your thoughts, really?
My name is Samuel anyway. Just one thing I want to know, yeah. If we want to know who we are, first we have to know who we are not. The things that we are not is we have to cut it off from ourselves first. Find the intelligent being that exists within all of us. We're not just the flesh and blood and running air, whatever, the 5 elements that we just know. We are beyond the 5 elements. We move the 5 elements with our body. And if you learn and educate ourselves in a right manner and live righteously, we can move the element around us as well. So where we from? To me, I come from Mother Earth. So Mother Earth give me the 5 elements that running throughout my body. So we need to know if we can unite with ourselves first, and then we can unite with other people as well. So it's not about who is greater, who is educated, it's not about that. Live righteous with yourself, humble yourself, and then be loyal to people. That's the only way we can get us out of the mess that we've created.
We're talking about where we're from, and we look at a timeline as to our human existence. We'll find that the time of difficulty that a lot of us focus on is a line in that big. So it would be good if we could spend that some time focusing our energy on where we were before, and acknowledge that the only focus on the difficult time is to get past and find repair within ourselves for it, and repair where we can get it. But if we focus on that as something that we're fighting with, then we're still lost in a generation of confusion. Let's go back and then move forward from there.
My name's Kwame. As we said before about finding ourselves, first of all, we need to have a mass character. Throughout history, everything has been done through a mass character, but it's been through revolution, through change, through protest, but it's been for women's rights, the civil rights movement, everything was through mass. So when we have things like this, which is collective, where we come together in the masses, we learn things, we grow. Yeah. Even people at the back that are not able to, oh thank God we've got microphones, but even back in the day when they didn't have microphones, even people who were far away, they were ready to listen because they knew the fact that everyone was there together. One little thing that they heard, they would be able to grow and take something from it, you know? So as a black people, we need to be mass. Whatever activity or movement like this there is, we need to make sure we are there. We have to be prompt, we have to be on time, and at the same time, whoever we can take with us, we must take with us. Because if we want to move forward, we need to put in that effort at the same time. Thank you.
I think what that gentleman was saying over there and what this gentleman was saying here, referring to kings and queens, like where we come from, a lot of the young people think their history just started from slavery. So they don't know their self-worth. And a lot of the youth, you speak to them, very lost these days in where the thoughts, the feelings and emotions, and it's very upsetting to see, you know, like where they are and how they think and the thoughts, and you can give them so much advice, but sometimes the thoughts are just so low, it's kind of depressing. So it's about how do we value our youth and aspire them to be whatever they want, because you know, sometimes I work in some of these schools that some of the males are in, like some of these crews and things, and some of the things that they tell me in there, like some about the home life and the education and some of the things that they've gone through, it's like, how can they overcome those kind of blocks and barriers that they've been put through, because some of them are on the last legs in terms of the thoughts are so low that they don't even want to learn. They just don't want to read, don't do it because they've had so much bad experience. So it's about how do we reevaluate them and make them to think that, you know, we know they've had a bad experience, but we can still work through this and they can still be something. So a lot of them are really low and they won't even want to go college or uni. So how do we get them in those kind of establishments so that they can think big and better? Because they're the ones that are really in need of the support, I think. So we need to really think about that.
I think, as you can see, over here and all through here and here, there are young black people doing amazing things in this city and in every city around the UK. And I think we're blinding ourselves at dismissing it as something else. And I'm pissed off, actually. If I can say that, I'm annoyed. Because, you know, we're blocking off other people as well. The black people who aren't religious, we're blocking off. The black people in the gay community, we're blocking off. The black feminists, we're blocking off. What needs to happen is us all come together. Absolutely everybody. Because we need all the hands in the pot to stir it, to make it work. Yeah.
My name's Delicia, and taking what everyone has said, I'm a young person and I'm aware of what's going on, and it's hard to see young black people who are like you, facing the same troubles as you, not receiving the kind of like opportunities that I have. Like, I'm here, but all my friends that are like in the know, like they don't have opportunities that I do. And like the older generation coming down at us saying, oh, you guys don't know anything. Well, how can you expect a plant to grow when you're not watering it?
Hi, I'm Aline. You good?
Yeah.
All right. My question is, I want to ask the panel, in terms of where we're from, what do you think about, especially youth today, that they want to, it's not about where they're from, they refuse where they're from, or they don't want to be where they're from. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, that's my question to the panel.
Speaking about why the youth, many of them, have such an issue with accepting their Africanity stems from the fact that self-hatred has been modeled for them by their parents in a larger society. They are what we allow them to become. And in many cases, they are what we actually made them to become. In fact, in many respects, this generation of African youth, I think, is a little bit more revolutionary and courageous than the previous generations of African people. And the last thing I want to say, where are the youth taught to hate their Africanity? Public school. And as long as we allow our children to be socialized and educated by the privilege of their oppressor, then the mindset that they will manifest throughout their life will be one that is self-destructive and anti-African in nature. So the solution, one of many of the solutions, is to give African children an independent, revolutionary, African-centered education. You cannot give the child's mind to the oppressor and then wonder why the child acts just like the oppressor.
I'm going to read some of my earlier pieces as a response to what I've just heard. And then at the end, I'll do one more piece, which is made up of the words that have been shared in this room at the moment. So the new piece will come later. So my name is Ilmi Ali. I'm a writer. I'm African. I'm from Somalia. And I'm going to share some pieces with you. And I hope you enjoy them. Thank you. Quench your thirst. In this world with an ignorance obsession, The bringers of light were all burnt by it. If you dislike my thoughts, don't want to hear my confessions, decide to send me away, send me away, send me away, send me away to ponder my obsession. My cry comes out only from my mouth. It's a cry from the hearts of the oppressed that wail for mankind. So I say, yes, send me to a lonely jungle to muffle my views. Leave me there, naked, with nothing to eat. I'll grab a papyrus weed to make paper. Ground ink from the seeds of a papaya after feasting on the fruits. Grab a banana leaf for my loincloth. Climb up a tree to write the Jungle Book and drop lines so hot that I'll be entertaining monkeys and panthers of all sorts. Speak to them so deep, so true that tigers will be vegans. And lions will shave off their manes, fold their claws into fists, pound the air when roar the song of freedom and equality. Elephants and rhinos in a stampede to stamp out greed and corruption. We would all align in single file like buffalo soldier to spread the word. The revolution is here. From Africa to the land of America. Finally, my words, just like Jesus in the Last Supper, I'll break you bread and let you sip on wine so that your hungry minds, as you dine on my food for thought, giving you enough so that in ignorance you do not rob, but not too much, because I don't intend to quench that thirst. Now watch yourself, take a long look, and in your brilliance, bask. It's such an honor to read at the commemoration of the 5th Pan-African Conference. Like, you have no idea, anybody who's anybody in Africa was here at that time. And it's great to commemorate that. So the next piece I'm going to do is called Prometheus and the Dictator. The dictator is like a dictator, you all know what that is, right? But also metaphorically, so don't read too much into or read as much as you like, right? So Prometheus and the Dictator. I'm playing pro. 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 I'm playing Prometheus on the rebound. I'm unbound. I double dutch to the future. Suture sparks into steeds. I'm hungry for deeds. Limbo in the loop while fiends do the weeding. Medusas in feeding. A Mau is breeding. Bring a match, bring a machete. Let's mosh pit these rebels. No bass, no treble, just a slight, light bite to the devil. Pitchfork tongues ruin all the fun. World is for the rich. Babel was had me in stitches, laughing off a fit. Swallow whole songs that you beat on a tablet. Break a hot hell like a billboard prophet, hung by the nose, strike in a pose we strive to oppose. Infinite, infinite, infinite foes. So I told the dictator, subliminal virtuosity makes things porous. It slips through mental locks unbridled to meet you in arranged matrimony at the altar of your psyche. Then you find your very self humming to my tunes. Then you find your very self humming to my tunes. Then you find your very self humming to my tunes. You've grown to love me. You say I'm crazy, call me a loon, but I'm catchy. Iambic is my pentameter, so I come again, repeat myself so you can catch me. You got me? Incarcerate me now when it's time to flip verse. See, I've been kicked and I've been pushed, so I reverse. Watch the walls closing in, pick up a beat, pick up a beat, pick up a beat, and serve my sentences, sentences, sentences through bars. And so I told the dictator, diabetic strongmen with peptic ulcers and gout, who bark childish orders as snot-nosed rebel soldiers, I told them it had to halt, so they dropped their guns, lit bonfires to burn effigies of hate and violence that declared them criminal. And so I told the dictator, so I told the dictator, naturally, All I want to do is neo-colonize your native mind. Take you back and weed those foreign thoughts that have made the now scarce fruits of your rich soils cursed. Watch your climates climax in their first subsistence with the insistence that you feed your people's hunger for thought. So I told the dictator, call me a traitor. Send my brainwashed skin to spill my life, then sing me martyr. For I am high treason, but you can't quell our grassroots dissidents. Shoot the messenger, but deliverance has come. So when you come, oppression on your barrel, semi-automatic on your right, balancing your pot belly, I shall cower, but my feet will hold, my fists will fold, before I surprise you. Gesticulating incessant obscenities in your direction to remind you, public disobedience, your current state of fodder, pass through the intestinal tracts of male bovines. You sit there with strong man, with yes man, a musky mound of bullshit. Very, very short piece. I wouldn't be doing justice to my African heritage if I didn't do a choral verse. So please join me, I'll teach you. This is a Somali form, and it's a popular form of poetry, but I'll teach you the Somali verse, but the verse is in English, okay? So I'll give you an example. There's two things you need to learn. The first thing is, Runta! Runta! Okay, fantastic. The second thing is, Hadi kala wahan laha. Okay, you don't need to do that. You only need to do ha hey. So, Runta, and ha hey. Okay, listen up, it goes like this. Mighty measures wake up to treasures of many moons, then gone too soon. That vacant room of gloom and doom. This musing marks my moving map. Hadi kala wahan laha. Ha hey. So Runta and then ha hey. Okay? Cool. Have you got it? One trial run? Okay. Mighty measures wake up to treasures of many moons, then gone too soon. That vacant room of gloom and doom. This musing marks my moving map. Hadi kala wahan laha. Fantastic. Cool. Off you go. It's only 3 verses. Cool. So, mighty measures wake up to treasures of many moons, then gone too soon. That vacant room of gloom and doom. This musing marks my moving map. Hadi kala wahan laha. Because believing stopped me from leaving, gave me the reason I live with seasons. Orion's belt held up my tent. This musing marks my moving map. Hadi kala wahan laha. To know a nomad is not absurd. To know his herd, what you have heard is heresy. Heroes roam these plains, you see. These musing marks my moving map. Hadi kala wahan laha. By the way, Runta means truth. Thank you.
Move on to the next question. If everyone wants to spin their chairs.
I think we got here from a lot of different ways. Obviously, the obvious ones are people say, oh, we got here from slavery, we got from this. I think it's way before that. We got here from great civilizations being established in history. And then we have horrendous things as well that have happened, slavery included. But we've also got here through the work of incredible people. We've come so far. We're not there at all, but we've come so far, and that's also something that we have to acknowledge, that there is so much more to go. But how did we get here? And I think it's from people standing up and taking ownership and really deciding to take charge of their lives.
Who came up with these questions? We got here for a process of travel, colonization, slavery, and modern day politics.
I would say through choices and experience, you know? Choices that are made through experience.
We got here in many ways. Some of us came here through no choice of our own. Some of us have had political challenges, maybe where we came from, that has brought us here to this place today. Some of us come because we chose to. I, for example, came here in order to understand the world that was beyond the scope of what I knew. And I came here to learn more about who I am and how I fit into the world.
Yeah, we got here through hard work, man, hard work, and through bravery, and through sacrifices, man, and through, you know, faith, man, in the future, and faith in what can be in it. That's how we got here, man, definitely.
Okay, so what I really liked in the film is somebody said we got here from people standing up. Is that you? Yeah? That was, I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting next to you, people standing up. Because I think, again, I always like to talk from history, from things that we can see. That in every generation, people have stood up to change the world. So it's not just the youth of today who's standing up. The youth of yesterday stood up. The youth of my generation stood up. The youth of the 1960s stood up. We're commemorating something that happened in 1945. The youth and people of 1945 stood up and organized a Congress. And we could go back to the beginning of the 20th century, or we could go back to the 19th century, or the 18th century, or the 17th century, or we could go back 2,000 years, or 20,000 years, or 50,000 years, or 100,000 years. And people would be standing up to change things, to change their situation. So we also have a duty to also stand up, to fight, to struggle, to change things. You know, there's a very famous African American in the 19th century. His name was Frederick Douglass. Some of you have heard of Frederick Douglass? Oh, yeah. You know what Frederick Douglass said? He said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. He summed up the whole of history in those lines. So every generation fights. If we had long enough, I'd tell you about when I was a youth and how I used to fight. Lee would tell you about when he was a youth, how he used to fight. This is the world we live in. So the thing that we have to think about is, what is the nature of that struggle today? What is it we have to do to change the world in the way that we want to change it? Just as in 1945. You know, 1945 Congress was all about changing the world. What kind of world did people want? And I heard two people speak in the audience talking about mass. They said we must be part of the mass. You know, that's what people were saying in 1945. They said we want a Congress which is a Congress of the masses. We don't want a few people coming and lecturing us. They said that we're already in struggle. The ordinary people, the masses of the people are in struggle. We have to be part of that struggle. And if we're going to change things, we have to be part of and organize those masses. And you know what? They weren't even just talking about African masses. Because when they organized the Congress here in Manchester, before they even came to Manchester, they organized 2 conferences in London. And they organized between African people, people of African heritage, and people of Asian heritage. People from India, people from Sri Lanka, people from Burma. And they all organized together. And you know what? They didn't stop at that. They said we have to organize amongst the workers internationally. And some of them went to a big conference where there were workers from all over the world. So they saw the struggle, or they saw the struggle that they were in as part of a struggle for a whole new world. I'm saying this now because I'm going to say it tomorrow morning. Some of you won't be up in time to hear what I'm going to say. But this is what we're commemorating. So do we commemorate it by forgetting it and saying it happened 70 years ago, or do we commemorate it by understanding it and using it to inform how we struggle to change the world today? So to me, this thing about masses and people being united, that the sister over here was talking about, is so important. And recognizing that we're all in struggle. It's not just some people in struggle, just some youth who are in struggle, or some men, or some women, or some gay, or some straight. Everybody is struggling. Anyone who's here who thinks they're not in a struggle, they must be living in some other universe. We're all engaged in that struggle together, because we all live in the same society. We all live in the same world. Some of us are men, some of us are women, some of us are gay, some of us are straight, some of us are African, some of us are more African than others. Okay, but we're all human beings in the same society, in the same world. So we have to organize ourselves to change that world, just as our ancestors did in the past. If they hadn't, we'd still be living in the Stone Age. We're not living in the Stone Age. We're living in a modern world. But we're not yet the decision makers of that world. And that's what people were talking about in 1945. How we could become the decision makers. And I think if we recognize that we're not just in struggle for the sake of struggle, but in struggle to be those who make decisions about everything, then we'll be clear about where we're going.
A struggle is always a fight. It will always see us encountering challenges where we meet adversaries that might mentally challenge us, physically challenge us, or challenge what's simply between our ears, that software, that mind that we have. For me, it was always about finding my way with fellow travelers who could inspire me. So standing upon the shoulders of those who sacrificed much in the past so we could stand in the moment of the present. It's how we use the warrior spirit. Because there are many fighters, but we need to be warriors. We need to understand what that warrior class was, a common class, a spiritual class, and recognizing that we all bleed red.
I was sort of thinking along the lines of, I thought, how did I get here? And when I thought about how did I get here, yeah, we know we came through slavery, colonization, and so forth. But I was thinking about, I got here, the position of wanting to understand what it meant to be to be happy, actually. There was something about, I got here through pain. I woke up and realized I was really very, very unhappy as a human being. And I wanted to look at why that was. And came to the conclusion that there had to be more to life and to the purpose of us being here than simply the job, the work, the career, the whatever. That didn't bring a sense of contentment or happiness or joy. And I thought and so that made me go and look to history and look to find out, what did we do before? How did we live? How did we govern ourselves? How did we relate to each other? What was our the framework that made it possible for us to be at peace, so that we weren't constantly in struggle, in battles. Also understanding that there was something around the adversity is, if you have no struggle, then there's no growth. If you don't have adversity, which is why we should be the most powerful people there is, because we have enough adversity. But the adversity itself is the challenge that makes you grow. And it was through the pain. It's the pain of realizing this thing called life hurts. And if it hurts this much, and I don't want it to hurt, I need to understand how I can do something within myself and for myself, but also for other people so that they don't have to hurt. Life should not be this painful. Things should not be this unbalanced, this unfair, this unjust. And what do we need to do in order to be able to change that? So I got here through acknowledging, one, my pain, one, my lostness and my confusion, and then started to find paths that would help me to discover how I could not be. And by finding the Black psychology movement, by finding that we had different ways of thinking, by being able to challenge how I was raised very European, how I was raised, that, by challenging what I was given as a basis of what is right and what is good and what is proper, always acknowledging that what is right and what is good and what is proper, what didn't look anything like me. Yeah? God was white. We were in a society. Think about it. We were raised in a society which is dichotomous and hierarchical. So everything is either or, and then up, higher and lower. And if you happen to be black and female, then you're there's your split, and then there's your thing. So you're here, you're always at the bottom. If we maintain our position in order to keep the culture that we are raised in, if we keep the neutrality of that, then we end up always being at the bottom, in pain, carrying the world on our backs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we have to actually really start to address the fact that we are here because the world abused its power. And I'm going to say this: you don't have to oppress something that is innately inferior. Yeah? So the fact that so much effort is still used to keep us oppressed tells you something about our power. Do you understand? So, since we are so powerful and we innately know that, because we know our spiritual selves, we sense ourselves, we sense our grandness, but we are constantly told that we are not that. So we are acculturated to not be what we are. Yeah? So we are here at this moment because we've come to the realization that we have to change that. That's why we are here now. We have to change that mindset that we have been grown into. Does that make sense? Okay.
How did we get here? I would say in one word, ignorance. We forgot who we were, the way we did things, the way we thought and acted with one another, the way we proceeded in the world. That cultural ignorance has a lot to do with where we are now. We also got here because we forgot our struggle and our experience. The reason we breathe here now is because folks who came before us died and sacrificed their lives. We didn't get here through the benevolence of white folk, and we didn't get here by voting. We got here because people protested with their life for better conditions for African people. And the third ignorance is the ignorance of white supremacy. It is the ignorance of not understanding how the world in which you operate actually exists. We are losing because we are trying to equate the African struggle with everyone else's struggle. Now you can respect the feminist fight, you can respect the LGBT fight, you can respect the Arab, the East Indian fight, you can respect all these other cultural fights, but you don't put them on the same playing field as yours. None of these groups. Let's understand something. If you're African, there's a stage in your struggle that neither the lesbian, the feminist, the Arab, or the East Indian, or the Latino ever had to experience. They went from oppression to fighting for equality and acceptance. The African did not go from oppression to fighting for equality and acceptance. We had a third stage, and that stage was humanization. We had to prove we were people before we could fight to be equal. We had to prove we were people before we could fight to be equal. We're not fighting for the right to cohabitate with someone. We're not fighting for equal wages with men. We're not fighting for the right to have our culture accepted. We're fighting for the right to exist, to breathe, to live. You don't let another group's mission make you think that it is as important as yours. We suffer because we are not our own priority yet. We make everyone else's issue more important than mine, which is to say we suffer for not being unapologetically African.
Can we give him another clap, please? Real Kushite. We are suffering because of the institutions around us. Yes? You can name them out. We are suffering because of institutions. We're not suffering because of accident, because of the youth there. And by the way, I love the exuberance of the youth and them talking up for themselves and saying they're on the mission and they wish to make things better. And they used to come together. I love that with the youth them, yeah? We're not here we want to see the youth them rise. My daughter is 11 years old. She's never been to a Babylon classroom. You understand? Her name is Reggae. It's not one of those names where her name is Reggae. It's in her passport. Her name is Reggae. The reason why I named her Reggae is so that she can pass on the legacy. Reggae is love. We fight against corruption. Yes? And it has an infectious baseline with the whole world love. But the world love our music, but they don't love us. They love our food, but they don't love us. So that's why we say reset the what? Reset the what? Bless you.
Oh, I'm loving being on this panel. I'm loving being in this room. Dr. Johnson, I know he's a poet, we need to talk. I'm just going to say two short things on two very different things. How did we get here? Myself and people of my generation I speak to, we've been thinking about this a long time. Of course, a lot of us got here today through our parents migrating here, wanting to come here to do the best for us, the best for themselves, the best for us, and the best for our families back home. Unfortunately, that has not always happened, I don't think. And when we look at it, to me, in doing that process, our family structures have been destroyed. I believe that. We've lost our language. When we've lost our language, we've lost so much. So that's one thing I think we need to caution in the future, especially when it comes to language. It's a shame that, how many people in here speak more than one language? That's good. But at the end of the day, we've got to be doing that. I go to Gambia a lot, they're speaking minimum 3 languages. What are we doing that to ourselves? We've got to do that. So that's one thing very quickly. The other main thing is really just supporting what some of the panelists have said. We come from struggle. Struggle is not always bad. Sometimes it's good because then we appreciate things and we appreciate things better if we struggled. And just to throw in another poetry thing, I'm working on a book with Benjamin Zephaniah, which is looking at the history of black people's struggle through poetry, of course. But struggle is where we've come from. And as I said, I don't think it's always necessarily a bad thing, because if we're just given things on a plate, we're not going to appreciate it. But just support each other in their struggle too, especially to understand where they've come from and who they are, because some people, I wouldn't say they necessarily get lost, they forget. And it's up for us to gently remind them and bring them with us. You don't leave people behind, you bring them with you to a place of strength. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Remember, and I just wanted to ask Dr. Umar to clarify what he meant by that our struggle is more important than the feminist struggle, because I, as a woman, don't, suffer oppression differently. I am simultaneously black and a woman. Can we not incorporate feminism into the black struggle?
Let's talk about that. First of all, we need to know the roots of the feminist movement as a movement for white women who were struggling. Let me finish. We cannot be emotional, let's be intellectual. The feminist movement was a movement by white women who were fighting against structural oppression imposed by the white male. He did not let her vote. He did not let her leave the house. He told her she cannot go to church if she was on her menses. She cannot go to college, cannot hold a job. Her place was in a home to cook and to raise the children. So she fought against that. And I understood it because it wasn't fair. But when she reached out to the black woman, she didn't do it because she cared anything about your situation. But she simply wanted to use your numerical power to push her agenda. And a mistake was made with black women in the feminist struggle by equating your dynamic with the black man with the white woman's dynamic with the white male. We don't control if you get a job. We don't control if you leave the house. We don't control if you go to college. The black male, by virtue of his own unique oppression under white supremacy, has never been in a position to dominate the black woman the way the white man has dominated the white female. So we're not saying that there's issues that don't need to be addressed, because there are. We have domestic abuse. We have sexism in the black community. You understand? So there's clearly sexist issues. But we would argue that you should fight that from an African womanist perspective, not a white feminist perspective. Because the African womanist perspective recognizes that me and the black man are struggling together against a common oppressor, but I reserve the right to address any sexist issues in the black community, but you never let the white woman use you against the black man. Unapologetically African.
Everyone quieten down so she can speak, okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Habiba.
to stand in solidarity with Sister here and to comment on what Dr. Umar has said. First of all, I think it's very patronizing to tell her to be not to be emotional, to be intellectual. She's being very intellectual. Yeah, so you cannot come here with this argument of emotionality. Secondly, I think we need to understand feminism differently. You're speaking to a kind of white feminism, but we've had feminism in Africa, which predates, which has been pre-colonial. If you look into a lot of African traditions, Mali, the griot tradition, the Jeli tradition of Gambia, Senegal, Guinea, Mali. If you look at the likes of Ami Koita, Kumbasidibe, Umu Sangare, in their songs like Musolu, once you understand the language and you begin listening to what they sing about in their songs, it's purely feminism. They speak to women's issues. And the feminist issue is not mutually exclusive to the African struggle. You have issues such as circumcision, you have issues like fistula in Africa, and it's because of really like sexism and patriarchy why we have some of these issues. And sometimes like the African men can be oppressors, so it's like one and the same. So do not exclude the feminist issue, and it's not a kind of white feminism. This is black womanism, this is black feminism, and just to repeat this again, please do not come to her with saying that she's responding emotionally. Like, I think she had a lot of respect to ask you the question on a very intellectual premise, and I would appreciate if perhaps some of the other panelists could speak to this, because I find your stance very problematic, Dr. Adib.
And that's okay. That's all right.
Would be well appreciated.
But I'm going to respond since you responded to me. Number one, but she responded. I'm going to speak first because she responded to me. Number one, your comment on being emotional, I would say the same thing to a black man who I thought was reacting with emotion more so than reason. That had nothing to do with her being a woman. That's something that's said to man and woman. As far as black womanism and black feminism, they are not the same. And there are black feminist activists, black womanist activists who are trying to clarify African womanism versus a reactionary white female created feminist movement. Secondly, although there have been black women in traditional Africa who articulated the unique issues faced by black women in indigenous African society, they never saw the black male as a cause of their issues. In African culture, we work from family, man and woman together overcoming issues. We do not divide ourselves up by gender and then attack each other. We are a family first people.
I always like to go back to history. One thing, if you look at the way that the 1945 Congress was conducted, also the question of women was raised in 1945. And I think what's important, this is not a debate between people on the panel and people in the audience. In fact, I'm very pleased to say that the organizers of this event have moved away from this Eurocentric approach of panel and audience, even though there's a table separating us. I haven't quite got over that hurdle yet, but they're moving in the right direction. Because when we discuss, then we have to discuss in a, I won't say a family way, but we discuss in a way in which we can exchange opinions. We may have different opinions. Doesn't mean we have to agree or disagree. We should just be able to express our opinions. And so we don't want a situation where people are reluctant to speak or feel that their viewpoint is not being heard and all that kind of thing. I think the point that Habiba made about African societies is very, very important. I would suggest, if you haven't read it, everybody reads a book called Sweeter Than Honey, which is about the struggle of women in Ethiopia. And I'm not going to say any more about it. I'd just like you to investigate it for yourselves and see something of their history, because it's always good to go back to Africa when we talk about these things. And in Ethiopian society, traditionally, particularly in northern Ethiopia, women were married sometimes at the age of 9 and 10. Women weren't allowed to speak in public. It was said that women couldn't sow or plow because the land would be fallow and so on. So there are many different problems which faced women in that society. And in this book, they speak about those problems and how they overcame them. And they overcame them by organizing, as our brother was saying here, as part of the mass to change the society that they were living in. And of course they had to fight alongside men and everybody else in that society. And it's the same for us. We live in a society where everybody, or a vast majority of people in this society, are oppressed. People are oppressed as Africans, as women, as gay, as whatever it is, as workers, as so on. So the issue is not really so much to examine the differences between our oppression, but what is the cause of that oppression? And how do we remove that cause? And to go back to 1945, those who organized the Congress that we're commemorating had a very clear view of the source of their oppression. And again, it's good to investigate what they said and what their view was. But they understood that the kind of oppression that people face as women or as Africans or as working people who create all the wealth, that there was a common oppression, a common source of oppression. And that if people united and got rid of that source of that oppression, then that would open up the possibility of a new world, a new society. Of course, people still would have to struggle in that new society, but it would remove the basic cause of that. So I think that we can learn a lot from history, and we can learn a lot from each other. We are all experts on living, on life, on living in a society that oppresses us. And so everybody's viewpoint is equal to everybody else's viewpoint. And we want to hear all of these viewpoints.
I just very quickly want to say that I'm a mummy's boy, so I understand where the sisters come from, where they are, and how important we are in our everyday existence. Without you, we are nothing. And I think that recognition that brother needs sister, sister needs brother, and whatever inequalities we face, we don't overcome them by a single gender approach. It is that spirit of truth that takes us forward. So for all you sisters, whatever age, whatever stage of your lives, we are defined by you, but we can only become what we become with you and through you.
Thank you. We're going to take it to the next question. I think what's been covered really, but I think the idea, I want to say something like, yes, that happened in 70 odd years ago, and that's the agenda. And we spent 70 years trying to address those things, and it hasn't worked. And I think we get caught up in, I was in Washington earlier this month at a summit, and looking at emotional emancipation. What a grassroots way of dealing with the issues that faces. It's created by women, of course, a healing network that's in America. And the striking thing was that we got so sidetracked into looking at all the other isms that we weren't able to, and I had to think about, as a psychotherapist and psychologist, I had to think about what's going on here? What's going on? And it became very clear that the issue that we have to deal with racism, with our own internalized racism, the work that we need to do individually with ourselves isn't getting done because we're constantly being drawn out into, if I say, look at me, then they go, but look at this. And if I say, look at this, oh, but look at this, and look at this, and look at this, and look at this. So we don't end up being able to do the one thing that we can do. Umar stood up once and said something like, he said, oh, women, single women, the reason why black boys, because of single women. And I thought, oh, come on, I raised my two kids. I'm not going to be held responsible for fatherhood as well. I'm not going to be held responsible for that. And it's kind of like, how do we begin to understand that, yes, there are issues in our community that we have to deal with between men and women. Women have had a hard time, this is true. But I think the feminist issue, I'm old, right? So I was around in the 70s and the 80s. I burnt my bra. I was there fighting with the unions. I marched with the miners, with the working classes. I put myself out there to say, okay, people, this is for people power. I was into people power, steward, giving it all. I'm 19 and I'm giving it all. But the people, yeah, as a black woman. But then when it turned out, the working classes weren't there to fight that particular fight that I needed to fight. health organisations. And I would say to commissioners, you need to fund us because we need to take time away to sit and to think and to understand who and what we are and to do our work before we can come to the table and offer anything. Otherwise, we just get distracted by all the other things. So we really need to stay focused. Yes, there is oppression. Yes, there is differences. But unless we actually are forgiving of each other and work together rather than pull apart, we're in trouble. Because it's too easy to get more and more.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Where are we now? We are at a point where we need to do better. We are at a point where we have the means to do better. It's not just about survival. It's about learning, about educating ourselves, about understanding our past and understanding and recognizing that there's more that can be done than what was done in the past.
As African people, we are at a point where we're ready for change. And I think that from everything that's happened in the world and what's going on in the world, we're now at a point where there is conflict, but there's also an understanding and people are just realizing who they are.
We're in a place where we're slightly accepted. We're more accepted than we were before, but there's still places where we can be accepted where we're not accepted yet. And I think it will take a while for us to get there, but for now we just have to keep fighting it and eventually we'll reach equality.
As people, we're at the point where we've had enough of being oppressed. So we're at in a sense, we're at a mental awakening. So it's like we don't want to be oppressed. We don't want to stay how we are. We want to be back to the good old days where it's just like having fun as Black people. Like, you know, like we're naturally creative people. So we want to get back to that without people telling us, oh, that's not a good thing for you to do. Oh, I don't think you'll be right for this position. Like, we don't want that. We don't want that because in a way we've been mentally like enslaved.
Where are we now?
Moving towards a future.
I feel like we're in a position of choice. So we're in a position where we can recognize being African and stop trying to be everything else and move forward, or we can keep trying to be everything else and fall at the wayside.
You know? But where I am now is where I'm meant to be, basically.
We're going to do something a little bit different. So all the panel are going to speak towards them. We'll do half and half. And there's one more question, so that then we can have more time to talk to everyone in the audience. So I'll just do like odd numbers.
First of all, I'm sorry, I have to go back to the previous question with a statement since I was left out. It's just something very quickly. I just need to make this clarification there's a difference between the white feminist movement and feminism. They're two different things. And the black women I know do understand there's a difference, and we don't deal with the white feminist movement because it's not our struggle, and we understand that and we know that. In terms of where are we now, we're not in a good place. And I say that because far too often when I'm sitting I'm in the writing world, in the publishing world, but not only with the publishing world, for example, in different other spaces. I will go and I'll listen to a panel, and I'll turn to my colleague, just say, some of you might have heard of Margaret Busby, a woman publisher in this country, and we look at each other and think, didn't we hear this last year? Didn't we hear this 10 years ago? Didn't we hear this 30 years ago? We're in the same place having the same damn conversations, and we're not moving forward in the ways that we should be, and that needs to change somehow. What we want to do is really be in the same place and having different, better conversations, the conversations that is moving us forward. So, I don't think, we're not moving as forward in a place much better than we should be in a much better space than we should be, is what I'm trying to say. Some things, yes, have got better. Some things have got worse. Yes, for example, when our parents came here, they were dealing with severe
severe racism that was very overt. Then it started to become covert. And now it's become extremely overt again. And we see this with black males, a lot of black people being brutalized in the community. And I'm talking about people in this country. I know it's happening to people in America. It is happening to our families here. It happened to my cousin. My cousin died in police custody on May the 3rd. And we are fighting. We're not going for no damn investigation. We want a fucking conviction of a police officer who killed a black man. That's what we should be fighting for. And let me tell you something, when I've spoken to a couple of older black men, and you know something, they say, you know something, it's not gonna change until it starts happening to them. And this guy, I'm like, you're supposed to be sitting as an elder, kind of not saying these things, and they're saying it. It's not gonna change if we're not going to fight, if we're not gonna really fight for some of these things. Those kind of things are happening to our parents. We've got to change it. If we're going to stay here, if you don't want to stay here, you know, you've got to think about that. If you want to stay here and say that we're here to stay, but if you're here to stay, you can't put up with that crap. You know, I've decided I don't want to stay. I'm only here sometimes. I'll go and deal. You've got to decide what kind of shit you want to deal with. When I'm in Africa, people say, oh, why are you going to Africa? Things are so bad, things are so corrupt. What the hell is the corruption going on here? You've got to decide what kind of shit you're going to deal with. Because it's shit everywhere, and I don't want to deal with the shit here. You understand? Okay.
Well, where are we now? Well, as you know, we're at Manchester University, holding a very beautiful and nice gathering. And I'm very, very happy, and it's very, very nice to see people inside my age group and outside my age group, young people and old people, learning about our story, not his story or her story, our story, the true story.
Thank you, well done, Professor.
I think we're in a really interesting place actually, because I always say we had a lost generation. I think I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. We were incredibly militant as part of the overall militancy that was going on at the time. Militant. And then there seemed to be a lost generation. Yeah, literally, it seems like we dropped off. You know, we had the Race Relations Act in 1965 and so on, and it was repealed and all that kind of stuff. But nothing much was changing. It was, you know. And then when you looked to try and find out, well, where are we? What are we doing? As you know, we were fighting other people's battles and caught up in that. I think now we've got back to the point where we're saying, actually, to be African or not to be. If we are not African, if we don't understand our African ancestry, we don't understand that that's where we belong, we pull ourselves together on that framework, then we don't really exist. We are, you know, we're Caribbean, or we're working class, we're Manchenians, we're Liverpudlians, we are something, we are this vague nothingness. If we don't, because we're not grounded or rooted in anything. So we have to, where are we now? We are at a place where we're beginning to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm grounded, this is where I'm coming up from, and this is where I want to be. And the place to be isn't necessarily a physical place, it's more a psychological place. It's a sense of knowing who you are. We are overrepresented, I'm psychic, so I've got to do this. We are overrepresented within the psychiatric services, within the prisons, within all the bad places that you can be. And that's because we don't know who we are and where we came from and what we're rooted in. And not just the history of that, but the essence of that as spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. If we understand that from our ancient Africans, we understand that from the pyramids and what they were trying to teach us, how we become gods and goddesses, how we become kings and queens, is by owning that and working towards that. So we know we have to work not just from functioning from our human and the kind of sense that the material, but understanding ourselves as also being incredibly spiritual, and by working on that, we can come together so we know where we are now.
We are in a very bad place, and and we're in a very good place. We have the possibilities of disaster and more disaster, and we have the possibility of victory and liberation. So where things go is up to us. I said at the beginning that we are the makers of history. So we have that task to change the world into the world we want it to be. We don't like the world we're in, we don't like the society we're in, then we have to change it. We have to build an alternative that is our world. And I don't know about you, somebody was talking about kings and queens earlier. I don't want to be a king or a queen. But I do want to be a ruler. I want to rule the society that I live in. I want to be a decision maker in this society. Until I'm a decision maker and you are all decision makers, then all these problems that we're talking about are going to continue. So I want to be a decision maker in this country. I want to decide on everything. I want to decide on what kind of economy there is, what kind of education system there is, what kind of health system there is, whether I can study and be taught in my own language at school from the age of 5. I want to be in a society where my history is second to none. I want to be a decision maker about everything that happens in Britain. I'm living in Britain at the moment. Tomorrow I might be somewhere else. I'm living in Britain. I want to be a decision maker in Britain. So I have to decide, and I guess you have to decide, if you're going to remain in Britain. How do we become the decision makers in this society? How do we have to organize ourselves? How do we have to unite? Yes, we have to unite as Africans, but do we only unite as Africans? So we have to decide how we're going to change this society. Otherwise we could say, well, we're not going to change it, but I don't think anyone's really thinking that way. We're all engaged in this struggle, but we want to be victorious. We don't want to go on struggling in the same way. And that means becoming the decision makers. And so that means fighting battles alongside other people who are also fighting to change society. Let me give you an example, very, very quickly. I'll give you the very, very short version. You know, a couple of years ago, a country in Africa was invaded. That country was Libya. It was invaded by the government of this country. Okay, so what did we do about it? How do we organize ourselves to stop that invasion? And how are we organizing ourselves to stop that invasion in the future? And I could talk about all the other things that are happening in Africa. It's the government of this country that's doing those things. Unless we are the government of this country, those attacks on Africa and other parts of the world won't stop. So I want to be the government of this country. I want you to be the government of this country. In other words, I want the majority of people to be the decision makers in this country. So to me, that's what has to be worked out. That doesn't mean that as Africans we don't struggle, or as women we don't struggle, or as gay people we don't struggle, or straight people, or whatever it is. Because everybody wants a different society. So in order to get that new alternative society, people have to organize together. And if you look at the history of Britain, that's what Africans have been doing in the 20th century, the 19th century, the 18th century, the 17th century, the 16th century, the 15th century. I could go back. And if anybody here can tell me that's not what's been going on, you can't. That is our history. That's the history of this country. It's also the history of Africa. It's the history of the world. That's the way the world operates. And at the moment, everybody is fighting for that different society. If we don't get it, then we may have World War III.
Sorry.
Who?
Sorry, we're gonna try and keep it that the audience get to speak. Yeah?
Okay, I'm not even gonna to go there. If we really want to have a discussion about whether Obama is ruling a
Let's
country,
not have that discussion. And let's not have that discussion. We'll move on to the audience.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. That in America they have exactly the same system of government as we have in this country, and as exists in Nigeria, and as exists in South Africa, and exists in Mali, and exists in every other country, exists in Jamaica, and so on and so forth, where the majority of people are not the decision makers. Some of the people who are in government may be African, some of them may be women, some of them may be gay, but we are not the decision makers. And all of those countries have exactly the same political system. A system which stops us being the decision makers. So we have to work out, how do we become decision makers in the country in which we live, wherever we live. That to me is where we are at the moment.
Personally, I think I'm getting to that point where I'm accepting who I am. Honestly, I'm proud to be black because I wasn't born here. I was born in Africa, and my cousin always makes jokes out of it, like, oh, you know, you're born in Africa. But you know, I don't see it as a big thing because at the end of the day, you should be proud where you're from. And I think I'm proud to be, you know, African. I'm proud to be Somali. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to be? Someone said before, because I'm quite young, I'm only 14, you know, I'm not 100, but I think I'm quite wise. I think I'm quite wise for my age because from an early age, my mum taught me that I should be proud to be black. I love my culture, I love it, going home, talking Somali, eating my rice and banana, I love it. Come on, I love it. So I just think I'm at a place where I'm accepting who I am, proud to be black. I mean, I'm not saying that being white or being Asian or being Arab is really bad. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying at the end of the day, you should be proud of where you're from. You're I think ancestors and other people have fought to get us here, and I'm blessed, and I want to say thank you to them for here.
I want to also answer the question, where are we now? And we're on a journey, we're all paving our paths, and some people, they don't know where they're going, they're paving it in the wrong direction, but some of us, we're all paving it into the same path. And I think we're starting to light this fire of the people, we're all sharing our energy, we're sharing our song. We need to, and that's what we need to do, we need to create our song, we need to show our dance or who we are, we need to create our art form and spread that so everyone understands that we as people have the power to not listen to so you can't oppress us. We can create our own path that's bigger than yours, and that everyone can be a part of this, everyone can have the same opportunity in this world.
Where are we going? Okay. Where are we going?
Just getting better and better and better at being humans, and at some point we'll be too good for ourselves and we'll somehow wipe ourselves out.
Well, I hope we're going into a more positive place, and I think we all need to work hard to realise how everything that we do has an impact, and we need to make this future better, not worse.
Now it's the point of doing things. So obviously we're having little discussions and getting people in the know. Now it's actually living through that knowledge.
I'm not really sure. I don't think anyone is, but I think we should go to a place where we can all realise that we have power, and that will, and it can and it will change the world.
Where are we going? We're going to a beautiful place where we're going to have that empowerment within ourselves. We're going to that place where we can heal some of the pains of what the world has thrown at us. But the nice thing about healing the pains in your life is that you build resiliency, and everything and all of the things that we want, all of the goals that we want to set is going to come from that resiliency. We have a few bumps, we have a few bruises, there's a few problems out there, and there are some terrible things that should have never happened. But God damn it, we're strong, and we have resiliency, and we'll make it. And that's where we're going. We're heading towards a time where everything that we put forth into this universe, into this conference, into anything that we want to do, we're going forth into the time where that is going to be exactly what we get.
we're going to justice, we're going to liberation, we're going to movement, we're going to free states, to free nations, to borderless countries. We're going to education for all, we're going to liberation for all, we're going to happiness for everyone.
I just want to say how proud I am of our future. It's all been said. I think it's the decisions we make, the actions that we take, collectively, individually, and the spirit that drives us and motivates us, past, present, and future. I'm just immensely proud of you guys and girls. Where are we going? Despite as bad as it looks right now, we're going back to where we belong, and that is the rulers of the global hierarchy. We're going back to our greatness, we're going back to our power. In the Yoruba philosophy, this year, 2015, is ruled by two energies, that of Oya and Ogun, their warrior energies. And the purpose of 2015 was to wash away all the evil, the weakness, the oppression, and the destitution. So when it looks like things are worse, that is when things are about to turn around. So we have to recognize that the negativity is a preparation for the positivity. Where are we going? Back to our ancient glory. We were not put here to serve, but to be in charge. We were not put here to be on our knees, but to be on our feet. African, from God's Spirit, and we go back the way God put us at. That's where we go.
Well, where we're going back to our original designated place. Simple. Love you all.
Obviously, I'm trying to talk more to youth, so if anyone has anything else they want to say, then please put your hand up.
Since pan-africanism is a lot about unity, I wanted to pose this question to Professor Hakeem. Being of Nigerian and Sierra Leonean descent, I want to know what is the pan-African response or solution to the Nigerian-Biafran divide and similar ethnic divisions? In other words, how do we reconcile the problem of disunity within African nations with unity between African nations?
We'll take the local stuff and then...
I just wanted to say that, well, every moment has formed this kind of painting, rope and knots, and some of these things that have been created are really bad and that have caused us to go in the wrong direction, have caused oppression on people that don't deserve to be oppressed. And where we are going is we are getting rid of some of these knots or some of these little strokes, some of these drawings that are just wrong, and we are going back to us being equal and us being powerful.
I'm from my mum, from my grandmother, from her grandmother, but most of all I'm from a woman that survived slavery. I could have been, my slave mother could have been murdered. She could have been thrown over the ship as cargo, right? She could have been anything, but I think all of us here today are a survival from a slavery mother. The young people today where I'm from Wolverhampton, and I've been trying to put together a group where we concentrate on the children who get good grades in their GCSEs, because the media do not concentrate. I'm constantly keeping hearing that black young lads are not achieving, and when I look around the room here today, you're all here at university, so what have you not achieved? You've achieved something, you've got here, you've got your grades, but the media would like to let you think, and black men especially, that you're not achieving. My son is here, he's at university, my daughter's been to university, they achieved, but I'm quite disturbed by how the media, when I look at the grades and there's black people at the back, black children at the back, and I'm just concentrating talking to the white children, what grade have you got? They're making you feel that we don't achieve, right? I struggled at school, I struggled with dyslexia, and in my primary school, my teachers kept me on the book, the same book for 4 years. And I am 51, and that's what happened to me. And I don't want the same happen to any of the young children today growing up. You need to stand up. When you get your grades from school, you make sure that The media know, you know that the town that you come from, know that you as a black man or a black woman got those grades. Because they're important, because this is what the society wants people to think, that we are not achieving, right? And you're all here today. You're all here, you used to here today, you're all here today. You've got to where you got by fighting. And the only reason you got through that fighting is because your slavery mother and your parents have survived and they've got you here today.
Hi, my name is Morgan, and I feel that we're going into a state of ownership. And when I say ownership, I mean ownership with pride. Not ownership and being ashamed of something, it's ownership with pride. Because if you have pride in something that you own, you're going to share it. And you're going to pass on that message. My mom, she studied in pan-African history. She knows the history. But I only found out last month, and I'm almost 21. And I was thinking to myself, why didn't I hear about this 10 years ago? And I was thinking to myself, was she ashamed of maybe me knowing this and using it in a more negative energy and maybe not trusting me in using it to more positive horizons? And so I feel I need to take it upon myself and take ownership and responsibility that this is me, this is my life, this is my heritage, and I need to do what I need to do. I need to be what I need to be. And it's up to me, it ain't up to anyone else. I can go to ask my mom anything now. I can go to ask anyone anything. If I want to know, it's up to me. It's about taking ownership, responsibility. It's all down to us individually. You know what I mean? So, I'm trying.
Yeah, leaving them behind. And we're spirits having a human experience. I think in our future that it's going to be a very unconventional methods that we're going to have to adopt. Well, as it feels now in a European state of mind we can have adopted. And then we must understand that even myself, that using the words like African, it's not even our word that we originally was. Just knowing who we are, where we come from. I mean, you go further into a higher existence of what we was. We go past gender, androgyny, and now we need to adopt. The not savior coming outside of itself is not going to be the savior. Like Jesus is going to come down and save us. It's within, building up that light within.
Might be a silly question, but do we ever feel we could ever reach that level of enlightenment? Like, even me, myself, I've fallen for at times, you know. I might decide that I might listen to a certain tune that's glorifying a certain lifestyle, you know what I mean? Like a drug lifestyle, even though I would never personally live that lifestyle. Like, I may listen to a bit of Fetty Wap, you know. At the same time, you know what I mean? And can our sisters ever, you know, maybe get away from the European way of thinking, do you know what I mean? Like, when it comes down to, to using makeup in a certain way, or you know, maybe like doing things with their hair. Do you know what I mean? That is not from the diaspora. You know what I mean? I'm just putting it out there as a bit of a curveball. Can we ever reach that state of enlightenment where we don't have to do these things anymore? And that, or is it swings and roundabouts? Is it a case of this is the universe? There's good as evil. There's going to be people that are going to sell our souls to the highest bidder. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, what do people think about that? Like, where are we going? Is there ever going to be a state of total enlightenment for our people? And I just want to really put that out there.
Stopping is not an option because we keep stepping every day, and because we keep stepping every day, we're moving, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter about where we're going or where we're going to end up. All that matters is that we're all in the same path and we're going to keep moving, and we're still moving, and we all have potential, and we're all optimistic. So because of that, we're gonna go somewhere, and we all don't know where it's gonna be. We don't know when it's gonna happen, but it's gonna be somewhere great. So.
terms of like supporting black businesses, like that's something really important. Like currently I work for Tailgate. I don't know if people know the Caribbean restaurant, and that's owned by other people, like Asian man and white man, and that's something that we could have and can still bring to our community and have within ourselves. So I think that's something important. Like we're talking and everything about stuff. What are we going to do? Like how are we going to act? How are we going to have business? How are we going to build those things? I think that's really, really important. Something for us to focus on.
What do you want to do when you get older?
I want to be a human rights lawyer, so I can defend people that can't defend themselves and help people that need help.
When you get older?
Like I said, I want to make a change, and obviously I'm going to study economics in university and do a degree, and I am going to be a politician.
I don't know. That's a difficult question, but I want to be someone who makes a difference in the world and who tries to make the world a better place, because by doing that, I suppose you get a better future, the people get a better future, and in the end, everyone's better and everyone benefits from it.
Well, I want to work in the tourism industry, probably become a manager of a hotel or something.
And just finally, what do you want to be when you get older?
I want to be a YouTuber or a streamer, and then if that doesn't work out, then I want to be a singer or a footballer.
I want to do medicine. A lot of people ask me why, because I think I'm a creative person, so a lot of people are like, well, that's not really going to fit in with creativity. But honestly, I think it's a job for me because I love helping people.
I don't know what I want to be. All I know is that I want to make a change and kind of add joy into people's life. I don't care about making money, I just know that I want to make a change.
As in what I want to do when I'm older and stuff?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I always change my mind. I want to make a difference in the world, obviously, but I'm always changing my mind.
Me, I want to be myself when I'm older. I'm not really sure what I want to be when I'm older. I just know that I want to have an impact, not maybe on the world, but maybe on myself or the people I'm around.
I've got a lot of dreams as yet unfulfilled. I'm actually building an artist retreat in the Gambia. That's one of the things I'm doing. I've just helped to build a poetry library in the Gambia. I would like to build a lot more. Just doing a lot of art projects in Africa. What do I want to do when I get older? I'm trying, I'm struggling to spend a lot of my life, a lot of my energy on doing positive things in Africa. In West Africa mainly, because that's where a lot of places where I'm doing things. And the people are so appreciative there, even if you're putting in a little thing, they see it as a major thing. And it's great to know that people appreciate what you do, even if it's a little thing, because it's helping to change their life. And I love doing that, and I think that, yes, I'm always kind of thinking what I'm going to do when I get older, because I still got a lot of life. And just also very quickly, and just in terms of, I think the other things in terms of just saying, where are we going to, I think it's just so fantastic that out of this conference, the PAC Foundation is coming. I'm expecting to see great steps from that. I think there's some great people behind it, to see great steps. A lot of wonderful things have been said here today. 5 years' time, we want to see how that's going to translate into action. The PAC Foundation is one of those first great steps, and I think it's just so important that came out of Manchester. It's so important that it's being established and that it's moving forward. So I just want to thank everybody who's behind that, and please, everybody, support it. Thank you.
Well, first of all, we want to extend the credibility to the people that put this whole event together. It's really warmed my heart. We're not gonna lie, it's warmed my heart tremendously. Seeing the issue with the woman, girls, you are the mother of creation. See, now I'm not gonna fret about you. You don't need to get educated. You have to know that in your mind that you are the mother of creation. Without you, there's no one, there's nothing. See, so don't let them little way get you off key. You understand? The next thing, remember, aims and objectives. They change their methods, not their purpose. Yeah? Later on, we have perform around here and intellect and, you know, because you know, Babylon them full of rhetoric, but we have the intellect. Ah, bless you.
Well, what I want to be when I get older, I want to be a teacher. I want to teach our story, or as many people know it as history. But I want to teach our story in our schools, to our people, and I want them to learn the truth. And a lot of people ask me, how can you teach your music, or how can you do your music and teach at the same time? And I simply say, I teach in my music.
I would just say that I enjoyed the conversation, and I would also say that we have to have those kind of conversations, as long as they're done with love. There's a tendency to shut out or block out any conversation that is considered sensitive or controversial. And that's one of the reasons why we don't progress ideologically, because we're afraid to go into those little crevices and work out those situations. We gotta have that feminist conversation, because a lot of people don't know the history of the movement. We gotta have that LBGT conversation. We gotta have that multicultural conversation. We have to talk about why the Pan-African movement must be all African with no non-African membership. These are controversial issues, but they have to be discussed. The only thing I want to say is next summer I'm planning an international Pan-African youth conference, and I would love to see youth from the UK represented. It will probably be on the continent of Africa. I go to South Africa next week, and I'm going to be speaking with them, and then I'll be in Nigeria in December and speaking with them. So if there's any young folk that's 14 to 24, I'm focusing on 14 to 24 because you are still courageous, you still believe in your vision, okay? And you're still unapologetic, most of you. So if you're interested in being a part of that Pan-African convention of African youth from all over the world next summer, please get in contact with me. You can reach me on my website, drumarjohnson.com. If you Twitter and Instagram, at Dr. Umar Johnson. And also you can reach out to me by adding me on WhatsApp via my phone number, 215-989-9858. And we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow for the commemoration of the 1945 conference. Ashe.
Microphone.
Okay. Actually, I'm starting hanging on in here and looking forward to. I'm going to proudly announce it. That's my son, George. What I want to do when I get older is to step aside.
Okay, I just want to explain something about history. Okay, that the word history doesn't have anything to do with his or hers. The word history comes from a word which means seeking knowledge by investigation, looking into things for yourself. And can I say to everybody here, especially those who are at the beginning of their lives, but also even those who are coming to the end of their lives, that I would encourage everybody to think for themselves. Operate on the basis of your experience, not what somebody tells you, or not what you're told. Base yourselves on experience. And I just wanted to say, somebody asked me a question, and before I answer that question about Nigeria, I want to let you into a secret. When I was about 17, I had 3 ambitions, shall we say, or 3 dreams. So one of those dreams was I was going to be a basketball player. 17, I had a really good jump shot and nice crossover, and anyway, I was going to be a basketball player. The second ambition, the second dream was I was going to be a musician. A lot of young men have that ambition, and I was no different. And the third ambition I had at 17 is I wanted to be a professor of African history. So if I can make it anybody here can make whatever they wish to make of their dreams. The problem with my basketball and the problem with my music was I didn't keep going. I stopped practicing piano. I didn't work at that jump shot enough. That crossover went a little bit. But the history I kept going. So keep going. If you give up in life, you never get anywhere. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to say very briefly on this question of Nigeria, because it goes back again to 1945. Everything goes back to 1945 and why we're here. In 1945, the resolutions which they passed here in Manchester 70 years ago this weekend, they said we reject the colonial borders of Africa. These are borders which have been imposed by the colonial powers. They said we reject the political system which has been imposed on Africa. It's alien to Africa. We have our own institutions, our own way of organizing ourselves. We must go back to that. And thirdly, they said we reject what they called the monopoly of capital. In other words, capitalism, that system that we live in and that we need to get rid of. Unfortunately, in many parts of Africa, Nigeria being one, those borders, that political system and that economic system still exist. And so unless we deal with those problems, that political system which exists in Nigeria is the same political system which exists in Britain. It's the same political system which operates in the US. It's the same political system in South Africa. Unless we remove it, and that's what I said about becoming a decision maker. Some people thought I meant I was going to be an MP. That's not what I meant. I meant being a decision maker. This political system and this parliament will never allow me to be a decision maker, and it will never allow you to be decision makers. We have to have our own system, and the people of Nigeria have to have their own system, based on the traditions of people in Nigeria. Recognizing all the 363, or however many it is, different nations and nationalities that live in Nigeria that all have their rights, their right to their language, their culture, which is not recognized in the Nigerian constitution, and so on and so forth. So without the people of Nigeria deciding what kind of political system we have, I'm also of Nigerian heritage, so I'm speaking as a Nigerian, unless we can decide what political system we have in Nigeria, not one imposed from Britain. Unless we can decide what economic system we have, the problem of what you refer to as Biafra, the problem of the rivers area, the problem of North and South, all of these problems which exist in Nigeria have existed for so many years, they will never be solved. And in fact, the problems are getting worse because Britain and so on are organizing Boko Haram and all these other problems in the area and so on. So unless we in Nigeria become the decision makers, unless we in Britain become the decision makers, that means a new system where we are at the center of things. We are the decision makers. These problems will not be solved.
Thank you so much, Charles. Do you want to give a one more round of applause to the panel? Exciting things to happen. Firstly, if you still have an evaluation form or a pen, because we ain't giving you pens, can you please give it to Benja and she'll come and get them. So, as we said, there will be a lovely poem of everything that's been said happening at the end. So,
this is a collation of all the words that have been said in the space, and I've sort of tried to guide them into some sense. So, yeah. We are what we want to be. We are trailblazers, trendsetters, Kushites, mostly known as black. We are not BME, not a minority. We are African. Action and culture, revolutionary invention. We are the cup of a handshake, disunited with a reuniting agenda. The creators of everything, the makers of history. We honor the human, hold each other with importance and pride. We find the intelligence We find the intelligent being beyond the poor elements that gather to make these paltry limbs, this limited body. We are the best color. We were created kinks. We were created kinks springing with the cyclical nature of African existence. We came from God with skin the color of the cosmos to act accordingly to each other, woman and man, to God. We came from beautiful fruits, from chocolate and mango, more mango. We don't just come from queens, from kings. We come from kin, Utu, Ubuntu, holding hands. Two heads are better than one at plotting a labor of genius. We aspire to royalty, to loyalty. We should be the most powerful people there is because we've had enough adversity. Life should not be this painful. Acknowledge the pain and confusion, but also the love, laughter, music, the obstacles and the dynamism with which we overcome them. We are the spiritual beings living a human existence. We are the random drum that came at the right time. We come from beauty, from an innate potential for beauty, from my own way to name myself, from all who came before, from Kuruma, from Gave, from Winnie, from Kinte and Kizzy and George and Terry and Shanice and Kenyatta and Mansa Musa, whose generosity was great, but greater than the king were the people. Take your place, stop the infighting, be who you are, sing your song or be blissful in your own silence, show your dance or don't, share, care, believe, be on your feet, take your place. We are moving. We're going to keep